Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the best Hughes of them all? Today we're talking about the New Jersey Devils, and I really wanted to make this video a little bit more because we've been talking about the Devils a few times here on this channel, and we usually talk about the same kinds of things. I like to primarily talk about the young guys when it comes to this team. The guys whom they developed and whom they drafted and who are doing well and doing all this stuff because I'm a big believer in what New Jersey is building, and I've been saying that a whole bunch over the past few months. So when it comes to New Jersey, we usually talk about the draft and we usually talk about some other things regarding the younger players on the team. We all kind of know this, but one of the younger players on the team is indeed Jack Hughes, the potential franchise center drafted first overall in the 2019 NHL Entry Draft because New Jersey ended up taking the first overall pick in the lottery and using it to select him so. However, even though Jack Hughes is one guy, I'll say it right here. The word Hughes is probably one of the most used words on this YouTube channel in terms of conversation topics and discussion, because obviously it's not just Jack Hughes we have to worry about. My favorite team, the Vancouver Canucks, is home to Quinn Hughes, the eldest of the Hughes brothers, and we have ourselves a 2021 eligible prospect who is the youngest brother in Luke Hughes. If you want an extended look as to what Luke Hughes is about, the pros, the cons, the stature, and all this stuff, go ahead and check out our Why I Want video on Luke Hughes. It is the scouting report-ish kind of version of this conversation over here. We've been making Why I Wants on a whole bunch of prospects at the 2021 NHL Entry Draft, so if you're interested in any of the prospect coverage, this is your spot, I guess. But for Luke Hughes specifically, because his older brothers are on New Jersey and Vancouver, we had ourselves this entire debate the entire season between Devils fans and Canucks fans saying, oh, who's gonna go out there and draft Luke first? Who's gonna add the Hughes brother to their team and have two Hughes? It was a pretty big discussion earlier on in the year, especially when the Canucks and the Devils were a lot closer in the NHL standings. However, towards the end, after Vancouver came back from their entire break with the illness, they started winning more games. They ended off the season against Calgary and Edmonton with a few wins here and there, pushing them all the way up there in the standings and pulling them further away from New Jersey in the draft. Vancouver is now drafting 9th overall, New Jersey is drafting 4th. And when it comes to Luke Hughes, a guy who is projected towards being taken somewhere in the top 7, at the very least, maybe somewhere in the top 10 if he is unlucky. He's a guy that could go as high as 2nd or 3rd overall. He could drop to as low as number 9 if things go a very specific way. Some scouting outlets over here have him at 11, others have him at 1. So whether he gets taken at 9 by Vancouver or 4 by New Jersey, I think it's a very fair place either way. Moving on though, Luke Hughes was recently a part of the NHL's Draft Prospect Media Conference, and we have ourselves some quotes that go over the New Jersey Devils and Luke Hughes in particular, and a lot of this stuff is kind of bittersweet for me because I'm a Vancouver Canucks fan that honestly would have been really open to the idea of Luke Hughes coming to Vancouver. A lot of people say, oh no man, we don't need any more left-handed defensemen, but he plays on the right, so yeah, there you go. You need a right-side defenseman? Luke Hughes could be that guy, if not a Brandt, Clarke, or whoever. Yeah, there are a lot of options over here. Either way, we're going over onto Amanda Stein's Twitter account because she tweeted out everything that we want to see over here. Take a look at this. Luke Hughes says about the New Jersey Devils having the 4th overall pick, it would be unbelievable to go to the Devils. My brother clearly wants me to be there. At the same time, there are 32 great teams out there, and I would be happy to go to any of these teams. And yeah, I know, Luke Hughes is stating the obvious. He's giving the cookie-cutter answers because you're supposed to be respectful to all the teams out there in the NHL because you don't want to be the guy who says, oh, I would love to be drafted by the Anaheim Ducks. I want to go to Anaheim. And then all of a sudden you get taken by, like, LA or something, and you're like, oh, well, you said you wanted to go to Anaheim. What now? You talk about all the teams respectfully, that's what Luke Hughes is doing, but highlighting the New Jersey Devils because of the connection there, oh man, gets my Canucks fan blood boiling. Luke Hughes also says that Jack loves it in New Jersey. He says that he has had a couple of conversations with the New Jersey Devils in preparation for the entry draft. He's been skating now for about 5 weeks as well, since recovering from his injury that kept him out at the end of the year. That, in particular, was a big deal to a lot of people keeping up with the NHL draft, because Luke Hughes, as a guy who is a Hughes, I mean, all the Hugheses are kind of similar in some fashion, they're all pretty good skaters. And Luke Hughes is no exception to that. He's not really like Quinn, who can razzle-dazzle, spin around like clockwork to avoid pressure and whatnot, and he's not really like Jack, who is just an all-out speedster who can pitter-patter his way to the front of the net in seconds. He's kind of a mix between the two, not really one or the other, he's kind of his own thing, but he still is a very good skater as well. Because he ended up having that injury, I think it was like a foot laceration or something, it took him out at the end of the year, and a lot of people were saying, okay, well, how is that going to impact his draft stock? He's a Hughes, so he's a good skater, and the entire body of work he has done with his skating is now all of a sudden in jeopardy because he's got this injury, and it might be a factor into him maybe slipping in the draft, who really knows, but he's saying that he has skated for 5 weeks since recovering from his injury, and he's been fine. He is then asked which brother between the New Jersey Devils' Jack Hughes and Vancouver Canucks' Quinn Hughes is the better player, and he says that's not a fair question. So, you know what? There you go. You don't want to make the family ties burn either because, I mean, we talk about being respectful to the NHL teams, you gotta be respectful to your own brothers as well. Now, because Luke Hughes is also a defenseman, obviously because Quinn Hughes is a defenseman as well, there was a question asked of compare, contrast, and all that, which Luke Hughes answered like this. One area where we're pretty different is that I'm 6'2", and I kill penalties, so yeah, you know, Luke Hughes, the tallest of the Hughes bros right there. Quinn and Jack, I believe they're both 5'10", so it is pretty intriguing to see how the youngest guy is the tallest by quite a big margin as well. And I'm not really surprised to see this entire diversification of the skill sets here, because as I noted, Quinn and Luke play completely different games. If you're drafting Luke with the expectation of getting Quinn, who is just like an offensive cowboy, not really the same kind of player here. I'd say that Luke is a little bit more further along defensively than Quinn was when Quinn was this age, and the fact that he also does play penalty kill does play into the entire responsibility aspect that Luke Hughes, I should say, projects onto himself. At the end of the day, though, Luke says that both his brothers are really good players, and all three of him, Quinn, and Jack are going to be really good players. That's kind of a funny quote, though, honestly. Both my brothers are really good players, and all three of us are going to be really good players. Like, yeah, you can tell he's got the confidence of an NHLer already. That's honestly one of the bigger things that I think could be expanded upon a little bit more, is the confidence of these guys, man. Like, they come from a hockey family with parents that were really good hockey figures, and they'd been growing up with the potential of making the NHL someday, and two of the brothers are already in the NHL, with Jack entering at the age of 18. I know for Quinn specifically, there have been so many moments throughout his young career where we just look at the interviews that the guy does, and it's like, wow, this guy's really confident. I remember when people were talking about him in his rookie season and they were asking him, oh, Quinn, so how surprising is it for you to be able to transition into the NHL this quickly and this fluidly, and you're so good at such a young age, does that really surprise you in any way? And Quinn was like, no, it doesn't surprise me. I know what I'm capable of, and I've been playing my whole life. So there is absolutely that confidence that exudes from the Hugheses out here that really puts them in a headspace that I think is so valuable when it comes to being an athlete. Because self-doubt isn't usually a thing with these kinds of guys, and it reflects out there in the ice as well, where some young defensemen might be thrown into the positions that Quinn and Luke Hughes are going to be thrusted into and crumble under pressure. The Hugheses, nah, they don't do that. They just keep a straight face, they analyze what they need to get done, and they do it, because these are some really good hockey players that know that they have the capabilities of doing NHL caliber things at this young of an age. Now, I mean, Luke is not going to do that right away. He's going to Michigan next year. But either or, he has talked about the New Jersey thing and how exactly that would be for him. I really wouldn't be surprised at this point, man. We have to make an entire other video about the Devils as well, talking about Brandt Clarke because Graham Clarke is another Devils guy who is also a relative of Clarke. And then we also have to talk about William Eklund because he was on the same line, I'm pretty sure, with Alexander Holtz as well, who is also a Devils guy. So yeah, they have a whole bunch of connections in the top spot of this draft where they're picking at 4th overall. So whether it's Clarke, Hughes, or Eklund, we'll make another video about that, by the way, soon. Talk to me in the comments what you thought about this video over here on Luke Hughes and the New Jersey Devils. Would you see a fit there? I personally think it would be a pretty good one, but I want you to tell me in the comments what you think as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. Rolls 99, and bye.